How to Make Money in Real Estate. Lecture 6. Valuation Methods for Rental Property. Hello everybody. In this lesson I am introducing the comparison method of valuation. Property valuation is an opinion or estimate regarding the value of a particular property as of a specific date. The goal of an appraisal is to determine a property's market value. Market value is an opinion of what a property would sell for in a competitive market based on the features and benefits of that property, the overall real estate market, supply and demand, and what other similar properties have sold for, in the same condition. There are two main methods used when conducting a rental property valuation: the comparison method and profits or investment method. A property valuer can choose one of these methods to calculate the market value of a property. Profits or investment method includes the use of comparison to a greater or lesser extent. In this lesson I am introducing the comparison method of valuation. Comparison method can be said to be one of the easiest and convenient methods of valuation for a specific property. However, some background knowledge is also very important to establish a value as accurate as possible. Comparison method is based primarily on the principle of substitution, where the purchaser would be unwilling to pay more for a specific property than the cost of obtaining a comparable, competitive property with the same utility, on the open market, provided there is no delay in making the acquisition. Comparison method estimates the value of a property by comparing it to the prices of similar neighboring properties sold in the same location and with a similar improvement specification, within a recent period. The basic assumption is therefore that a subject property is worth what it will sell for, in the absence of undue stress. Due to the dynamic nature and constantly changing nature of real estate markets, investors should frequently check the prices of recently sold properties. The comparable method of valuation is the most commonly used when attempting to assess the value of vacant property or undeveloped land concerning general trends and projections and employing the principle of substitution. The comparative method tends to provide more accurate results when the compared properties are similar in structure. The compared properties are within close proximity of each other. Location is vital in terms of residential value. The property's position in the country and factors such as aspect, outlook and the immediate environment are important. All the compared properties have same legal interest. That is, they are all either freehold or leasehold. The real estate market is stable as at the time of gathering the data, especially concerning the prices of properties. The assessed past transactions on the compared properties are recent and relevant. The value of one property may be derived by comparing it with prices achieved from market transactions in similar properties. Those properties that are most like yours should receive a greater weighting than those which are less comparable. The comparison method is used to value the most common types of property, such as houses, shops, and offices. Ideally, the market should be stable and there should be multiple, recent sales of comparable properties, same size, location, improvement condition. The best comparable factors should be selected and analyzed, and thereafter adjustments can be made for their differences. The valuer must gather relevant data from neighboring properties that possess the same attributes as the subject property. Finding good comparable evidence in property markets is often not easy. Careful interpretation is required and exercise of judgment in supporting an opinion of value. The precise nature of the information to be recorded will depend on the type of property asset being valued. The following list provides a summary of likely generic headings, though these will vary depending on the context of the valuation and should be adapted to take account of particular types of property and individual circumstances. Address. Property type, that is, office, shop, industrial, residential, agricultural. Exact nature of the asset being valued or compared, for example a freehold or leasehold interest. Location details. Legal, that is, lease details. Property details, brief description, specification, condition and any other relevant attributes. That is, energy efficiency may be a material issue in some sectors or markets. Accommodation, area, including method of measurement, plot size, date of transaction, analysis per unit area, where appropriate. The valuation process follows three basic steps in arriving at the value of the subject property: identifying the highest and best use of the subject property, the identification of similar properties that have previously sold, and finally, adjusting the value of the comparable sales. First step: identify of the highest and best use of the property. Second step: identify and analyze comparable sales. Third step: adjust comparable sales value to reflect the characteristics of the subject property. The first step is the identification of the highest and best use of the property. This is so to ensure the value of the property based on the characteristics of the subject property, which includes its physical characteristics and legal permissibility. The second step requires the identification of the comparable sales. The comparative method of valuation relies heavily on the data from transaction databases and from information derived from a personal inspection. To be considered a comparable sale to the said property, the previously sold properties must have the same, or at least very similar, highest and best use, as if comparing apples to apples. It is optimal to ensure that they can be found in the same geographical area, have a sales track record in the past, as well as share similar amenities. The more similar the comparable is, the better. A comparable property is one that is most like the subject property. The similarities should match all the general details of the property. General descriptions of a property include the number of bedrooms, baths, square footage size. Some of the allowable discrepancies include an extra bath, color of the paint, and other insignificant descriptions. The comparison of comparable properties should be restricted to properties that are as close as possible in their physical location. It is because properties in different locations may have different market values even though they share a lot of similarities. For example, residential apartments that are close to the central business district attract a higher valuation than properties that are located far away from the center. The most effective manner to use the comparative method is to visit the comparable properties in person and inspect them. Visiting each individual property in person can consume a lot of time, energy, and resources. Therefore, transaction databases can be used to get necessary information concerning the properties in question. Another consideration that should be made is taking properties that were sold as recently as possible. Recently sold properties come with better approximations than properties that were sold a few months or years earlier, since real estate markets change regularly. If there are no comparable properties in the same location, consider recently sold properties in nearby locations, rather than moving farther in time while searching for comparable properties. Third step is the adjusting of the comparable sales values to reflect their superior and inferior characteristics to the subject property. There are many factors to be considered in making adjustments, for instance, the size, shape, topography, available amenities and locational attributes of the comparable sales. The best results from this approach are obtained when good and truly comparable properties are used as a gauge. The best comparable are those which require the least amount of adjustment. The best comparison can be made when the selling price is reduced to a proper unit of comparison. Adjustments are then made to the sale price per unit. It is always best to make any necessary time adjustments first, then apply the total of all other adjustments to the time adjusted price per unit to arrive at a fully adjusted price per unit from each comparable. Properties are properly compared to determine an accurate estimate of the subject property's value. There are many factors to be considered in making adjustments. The size, shape, available amenities, improvements, and locational attributes of the comparable sales. To provide a better image of the method, the following is an example. A 4-bedroom flat was recently sold for $200,000 and it is the comparable property A. We are being asked to appraise the 3-bedroom semi-detached house next to it. In this case, we will determine the characteristics of the comparable property and compare them to the subject property to adjust the value of the comparable property to make it more like the subject property. Once this has been completed, the adjusted value of the comparable property should be approximately equal to the market value of the subject property. The table provides an example as to how this calculation is completed. In the left column are the characteristics of the properties. The columns to the right the comparable property and lists the adjustments to the value necessary to make the comparable property more like the subject property. If the comparable characteristic is superior to the subject, subtract from the comparable property's value. If the comparable characteristic is inferior to the subject, add to the comparable property's value. This is just a simple example between two properties. It is important to note that to compare characteristics we must obtain information from several sources on both the subject and comparable properties. In calculating the adjusted value, the appraiser will add the total adjustments and either add or subtract them from the sale price of the comparable property. In this example, the adjustments amount to an added value of 10% and that amount is therefore added from the comparable sale price of $200,000, resulting in an adjusted value of $220,000 for the said property. All in all, this is a quick and easy way to utilize the direct comparison approach for the property. We hope we have provided a simple yet useful explanation for this property valuation approach, and that it will prove to be beneficial for you in the future. Conclusion. The sales comparison approach capitalizes on the similarity of the two properties being compared. The similarity ranges from how recent the sale or listing is to the similarity in the description of the compared entities. It is evident that there are no identical, comparable units, hence, there is a need for adjustments depending on the differences in features. Due to the dynamic nature and constantly changing nature of real estate markets, investors should frequently check the prices of recently listed properties for sale. The markets change rapidly, and all players should be aware of current trends. Based on the prevailing conditions, the sellers and investors can be obliged to either raise or lower their demands to be at par with the market trends. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch all my lectures, which are free, you may be able to start investing in rental properties a little quicker. In the next lecture I am introducing an alternative method to calculate the value of an investment property, the income approach. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell to get alerts when a new video is posted. Please write your comments, questions, or concerns you would like to share.